Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Gail Empt. I am the program director for Mind Club America for their Parent Inner Circle. And I'm really excited about the Inner Circle program because it is where really everything I wish I had had as I did my own journey, we're bringing it together so that we can make other parents' journeys accelerate their ability to transform how things are going with their children. As we look tonight at power struggles, and I'm sure because you're here, you're familiar with them. I certainly was challenged with them in my life, but I turned and I did everything I could to learn how to manage it. And I tried so hard to talk to people, to read books, try things. I never knew if I was doing it right or wrong. I'd do something once and it would work. No, then it wouldn't work another time and I didn't know what to do next. I did go out. It became pretty much a full-time job. I'm now certified in community reinforcement and family training and in the Invitation to Change, which are really the two most amazing programs for parents. These are parent-centered, family-centered programs that really give us the tools to be able to effectively engage with our children and transform their journey with substance use and help them and help us really repair the connection, the communication, and get them thinking about their choices and get them moving towards giving up substances towards recovery. I'm going to just jump in. The woman on the left to me almost looks too calm compared to what I was like when I was in the throes of it. I have two children, both of whom struggled. I had one who'd struggled from a very young age and then got into substances. I had another one who seemed to be doing really well. All of a sudden, teenage years hit, and he also got taken up with substance use. And she looks calm to me. I was tearing my hair out. I was so stressed. I was constantly in this mode of, oh my God, I'm under threat. I was so afraid to ask for what I wanted in my home. The power struggles were a daily event. Sometimes they were an hourly event because I'd deal with a power struggle with one child and then I'd have it with another child. And I always got to a place where I felt like I was just giving in, just trying to keep the peace in my family. And I'm sure you can appreciate this. I got lots of advice. Just tell them what to do. You're the parent. Take away their phones. Just cut them off. It is something that we all deal with. When you watch your parent do it, perhaps with a sibling, it just makes things worse, right? But all the learning I did, all the classes I tried to take, all the certifications I did, the work I did, the people I tried to talk to, the books I read, eventually I realized it wasn't enough and it didn't get me where I was trying to get to. I was still in this frantic, stressed place trying to figure out how to use all this information that was at my fingertips now. And the transformation for me to being calm and confident with anything my kids throw at me these days really came when I put a couple of additional pieces together. Yes, I had the books and the learning and the information, but I also connected with an experienced guide. And I found a community of other parents who were sharing the same kinds of struggles that I was. Some of them were farther along. They'd already solved some of the things that I had. And everybody was using the same set of evidence-based skills called craft to help their children. And that's really when I managed to get on top of my learning, to be able to use my skills, and to be able to actually make transformation for both of my kids. I moved from there into coaching, working with other parents. I've been working with parents for a number of years now and teaching them the craft skills. And the craft is at the heart of what we're going to talk about. The topic tonight is specific to power struggles, because whether it's disrespect or not following through on something or sneaking around the house so they don't have to actually run into you, or just plain old staring you down when you try to talk to them, these are all forms of power struggles. And my mission with the Parent Inner Circle is to take everything that I learned and what I found were the right supports and the right access to experts and put it together into a program for you that's going to save you time trying to figure out what to do. It's going to cut down on the times you go down a path and find out it's a dead end. It's going to help you to rebuild your connections, the ability to communicate with your child. And instead of being the authoritarian figure who's in their way, you're going to become their best cheerleader and supporter, helping them get into recovery and stay there. Using these tools is going to help you save money because you're not going to be spending it on treatments that don't work and programs that don't fit your child and random classes that you take that then you leave the class and you're all fired up and excited, only to find out that when you try to use it in real life, you can't do it. There's something more you need to know. There's some more piece of help you need. And I tell all my parents that I work with or that are in my programs, our mission is to help you get to a place of calm and confidence so that you can handle no matter what comes up with your child. So with that, let's jump into power struggles. Why do power struggles happen? Well, our kids have lots of different reasons for engaging in a power struggle with us. At its core, they get something out of it for them, and they feel like it's worked for them in the past. And they may be engaging in a power struggle with us because they're trying to be independent. That's kind of normal, happens as a normal part of growing up and becoming an adult. When we add substance use in there, it gets more complicated. There's peer pressure or rejection by peers. They may want to take that out on us. They may just be rebelling from where they're expected to go or what they're expected to do. They may be dealing with some trauma inside that is causing them that they don't know how to manage the feelings and emotions, so they're going to fight with us because it makes them feel better, because they get their way, and because it keeps them from having to focus on the thing that's not working inside of them. A lot of kids who use, and adults who use substances, engage in power struggles as a way of deflecting their own shame and blame. And that's often really hard for us because it looks to us like our child doesn't care. They're just fighting. They're totally tuned out. They've given up on everything. But the reality is this is their defense mechanism. And the reality is that sometimes the things we do contribute to the power struggle. As parents, we often feel like, well, we've raised our children to this point, telling them what to do, keeping them safe, guiding them. So we need to win this discussion. What they're doing is wrong. It's dangerous. It's putting them at risk. It's taking away all the great things we thought were in their future. We have to win this argument with them. We have to show them that they're wrong, that they've got to quit using right now. So we argue and we correct and we try to teach and we try to show. And I like this graphic because it shares two things for me. First of all, the teacher here is, I'm telling you, I know what's right. I've got it. This is the way it should be. You're wrong. And what's the boy doing? He's not listening. He doesn't care what she's saying. So we actually do our part in keeping power struggles going and keeping them alive. And what we're going to learn tonight are 6 key things that we can do to avoid that power struggle so that we don't go down that path or so that we don't go down that path anywhere near as often. And so let's jump right in. The first part of the power struggle is choose the time. And this is a really important idea. And I use an image for all my parents of a stoplight, red and green, red traffic light, red, yellow, and green traffic light. So red is when when our child is saying to us, this is not a good time to be talking to me about anything I don't want to talk about. And what's bad? When is that likely to be seen? It is going to be seen when it is, they're tired, they're hungry, they are under the influence, they are dysregulated, they're already upset by something. These are all red lights. And very often that's just the time we try to have a conversation with our kids and it turns into a power struggle. Our child comes home under the influence of, they've been out all night, they're coming home, they're staggering in, and what do? We want to lecture them and teach them that coming home drunk or under the influence is not the thing to do and we won't tolerate it and they have to stop and yada, 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 yada. And that's all they hear, right? So red lights. There's another part to the red light, which is our red lights, because the same thing holds true with us. When we have any of these conversations, we need to be in a space where we're not trying to lecture. We're not trying to win. We are in a place where we can be calm and consistent. So we have red lights. If we're hungry, if we're stressed, if we're rushed, those are our red lights. Don't pick that time to have a conversation or to engage with your child on anything challenging. Put it off. Say, you know what? We're not going to talk right now. We'll discuss this tomorrow, or we'll pick this up tomorrow, or in 10 minutes, or will you be in a better place in half an hour? So we say things like, I can see you've been using recently. I'm going to leave you alone right now, and tomorrow we'll talk about what you're doing. So pick your time and think about red and green lights. Great tip for avoiding a power struggle. The second part of avoiding a power struggle is positive reinforcement. You know, when we see our kids doing things we don't like, so often we start with, don't do that. You didn't do, you forgot, you left undone. And what we want to do is focus on what we want rather than what we don't want or what has not happened. Because when we focus on what we want and when we let them know we saw they did what we wanted, that's called positive reinforcement. And the science tells us that behaviors that get reinforced get repeated. So if you catch them doing something good, that's when you're likely to get them to do it again. And when they feel they're being recognized for being good, they're way less defensive and they're much less ready to jump into a power struggle or an argument with you. So instead of saying, you always swear when I try to talk about your substance use, how about saying, I'm uncomfortable with your substance use, but I want us to talk calmly instead of yelling. When we talked yesterday, we had a good conversation. Let's do that again. You've recognized them for something they've done and help them to think, I want to do it again, because at the end of the day, they grew up loving us. They grew up wanting our attention. They are wired to want to be praised. Let's use that to avoid power struggles. Our third tip for avoiding a power struggle is what we call active listening. And this is really when we are open to what they are saying, rather than just waiting until they get done so that we can say what we want to say. I was a victim of this when my one son got into vaping. I was, whatever he said about vaping, I was just waiting until I could roll out all the facts and figures about why it was dangerous for your health and dangerous for you and why he should stop. That's not active listening. Active listening is making eye contact, putting away distractions, listening and repeating back what they say to you so they know that they have been heard. Holding off on any judgment. So don't say, oh, you said, and then judge it. Just, you said X. I heard you say. How could you think that driving while high is okay, right? Your child's just come home. He only was out, you knew he was just across the neighborhood, but still he drove home and he was high. So, and typically we'll grab him right as they come in the front door. Number one, you're not looking at the red and green lights because he's under the influence. And instead say, I heard you say you thought it was a short drive and it wouldn't be a problem. Now, we all know that can be a big problem, but we are not judging what they say. And by the way, we're not agreeing with them, but we are letting them know we heard what they said. I actually shared this with my young adult son before, so I was getting ready for this tonight. And one of the things he said to me was, yes, making eye contact. He said, that is so important to make sure that you're looking at me and I'm looking at you, because he happens to be ADHD. He's like, I could be off, in a million different directions. And if you're not looking at me and don't get me looking at you, one of us is not paying attention and is not going to hear what's being said. So Try really listening to your child rather than just being ready to jump in with a correction or a judgment or a solution, anything, because then they feel they're being heard. Again, less likely, much less likely to have a reason to have a power struggle with you. 4, consistent limits, boundaries. Our kids come in. Remember the picture of the girl and she's there and the mom's right there, right? It's because she doesn't know what to expect. Every time she comes in, she doesn't know what her parents are going to say about what she's done or not done. And usually it's said about what she's not done. And she is going to be defensive because she doesn't know what's coming. Just being able to be consistent in how we engage in a conversation, getting them used to the fact that we are now going to be listening and repeating back what they say to us, that we are going to be trying to focus on finding good things, positive things for that. This teaches our child to have a consistent expectation that reduces their interest, willingness, or likelihood of trying to get us embroiled in a power struggle. So instead of saying to them, there's no way you're getting the car tomorrow after this episode. Well, for how long? And which episode are we talking about? And why is it the car? And right, our kid doesn't know what to expect. If we say to them instead, when you choose to drive the car knowing that you've been using, there's no access to the car the next day. It's very different. Boundaries is it you could think, well, why how is this related to power struggles? But it's the lack of ability to predict what's going to happen that makes your child feel on edge and ready to fight because they feel they have to protect themselves from an unknown, right? Very important to find ways to create consistency. I have a whole nother talk that I do on boundaries and how to set boundaries in a caring way that can actually increase the connection with your child. Because a lot of us as parents, and I certainly did, you try to set a boundary, you're met with a power struggle, and so a lot of times you back off because your child might never talk to you again. Your child might go out and hurt themselves. Your child might hurt something inside the house. You are afraid. But the reality is there are ways for us to go about creating boundaries and enforcing boundaries that avoid the fights and actually increase the connection over time. So I have whole other sessions that I do on that. And hopefully you'll either been to one. Some of you may already have attended one of those. And I give them routinely as part of the Parent Inner Circle program that we have. The next really actionable thing is coming to your child with empathy and validation. That means, what does that mean? That means putting yourself in your child's position and looking what happened through their eyes. Because when you're able to do that, and the core of what we do in the inner circle and the core of craft is all about getting our heads into what does the world look like through our child's eyes. Because that is really powerful. When we understand it and when our children see that we are making a real effort to recognize and appreciate and empathize with what they're dealing with, it helps us to build the trust and it reduces their defensiveness. What does defensiveness do with our kids? It's going to lead to the power struggles again. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. You don't understand me. You are out in la la land. You are crazy. You're the one who should be in therapy. Right? I don't know if anybody's heard statements from their children, but I certainly did. I heard every variation of that from one or the other. And the parents I work with hear that over and over again from their kids. But if we can come at them from a place of empathy, and if we can validate their feelings, not necessarily agree that they're right, but validate their right to their thoughts and their right to their feelings. After all, what are our kids? They're growing human beings, independent individuals, and they all want to be seen as an independent adult. So let's validate that desire and shepherd them along as they actually go through the growing process and the learning process to be that adult that they want to be. So instead of only an idiot would think I'm okay with my money being taken, because that happens when kids are caught up in substance use. We find things missing all the time. There's a lot of parents, I'm sure, who have held that happen to them. That doesn't mean we can't set a boundary, and that doesn't mean we can't say it's not acceptable, but there's different ways to say it. So instead of only an idiot, I'm talking down to you. I'm denying that you're an independent individual. Think I'm okay with my money being taken. How about I can see it was easy to just help yourself to the money when you needed it. I need you to ask me first. I'm going to keep my wallet locked in the safe from now on. That's kind of a minimum. We can go on from there and then apply some boundaries or some expectations. But the minimum is I've empathized with you, I validated it, I don't like it, and I don't want it to happen again. And the last tip for us tonight is what I'm starting to call mindset mastery. And it's self-care on steroids, but it's the result of self-care. And it's the result of a lot of other things. It's really being able to take action from a place of love and kindness toward our child. It's being able to get ourselves in a place where we can manage our emotions, our reactions, and our environment so that we can provide caring correction and caring support. So often as parents, I know I spent years, I was stressed, I was angry, I was anxious, I was scared, I was frustrated, I was depressed by everything that was going on and not going the way I wanted it to, and the fact my children weren't talking to me, and everything that was going on. We all go through this, and we all struggle with these emotions. And the problem is that these emotions get in the way of us being able to be creative and loving and kind towards our child. And so a big part of the secret to success is learning ways to master our mindset. And self-care is a piece of it, and surrounding ourselves with people who understand us as opposed to people who tell us things that aren't helpful, and connecting with people who are experts or have more experience dealing with what we're dealing with in a way that they can give us little hints and tips. Don't have to sit down for an hour in a therapist's office to get an answer, write everything down like I used to do, write everything down, and then I'd go off and I was on my own for the next month until I saw the therapist again. And in the meantime, a million other things had gone wrong. Get yourself in a place and surrounded by people who can give you that almost real-time feedback to help you master your mindset. So how do we master our mindset? Well, some of the tools we've talked about already are really helpful. The red light, green light, when to engage in a conversation and when not to. Remember, I said that's also for us. If I'm upset and angry, although it might feel really good to talk to my child and probably yell at them at that moment, that is not going to create a caring connection. And that is not going to avoid a power struggle, because my child is going to be all in on fending me off and getting out of there, right? So when we can engage in conversations when we're calm and firm, and we're able to let go of the idea of winning, I'm right, I've got the answer, you're wrong. And when we can accept being uncomfortable, because as I went through this process to learn these skills, and all the parents I work with say this over and over again, this is uncomfortable. I've not done this before. Am I doing it right? I'm not sure. But as they get using the tools and as they get the feedback from the parents around them, from the coaches in the community, I hear them say, I got this. I get it. Oh, that's how you did it. I'm going to try doing the same thing. And they're able to move forward. So instead of reacting in the moment, here's one of my biggest tips to help you on the first step of mastering your mindset and avoiding power struggles. Is that instead of reacting to whatever comes at you in the moment, because that's most likely to be a reaction out of fear or hurt or anger, take a deep breath and do a pause. And I think if over and over again, I hear parents talking about the pause, the pause. I have a visual of, there used to be that big red stop button and in somebody's ad, Staples or something, right? You hit that. Well, I have the big red button, which has the word pause written on it. And that's a visual for me. Whenever something comes at me and catches me by surprise and I'm about to respond, I get that visual and I give myself space and I work my other tools, my other skills, and I'm able to engage with my child in a manner that is predictable to them now. They used to be able to predict that when something happened, I would fly off the handle and I would get upset or I'd cry or I'd be distressed. Now they can predict that when they share something with me or something happens, I'm going to be calm and I'm going to be confident and I'm going to open up a conversation with them about what happened and how we deal with it. I've given you 6 real things that you can take home today. And if you do only a tiny piece of just one of them, and if you tried it 2 or 3 times in a row, you will see a change in the power struggle that you're used to dealing with. Connection. We as humans need to create more meaningful connections. You can see, I think, by using this approach and these key secrets, you're going to be supporting connection. And that's actually one of the biggest outcomes our families get is stronger connection to their children. Where communication may be hard or contentious or non-existent, they're able to turn that around and create connection. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. Kitty Joe said, I get it, but I feel as though we're pushing what they did under the carpet. No, we're absolutely not. What we are doing, however, is picking our time to talk to them about what has happened, a time when they are calm and open to hearing, and we are calm and open to sharing. We are learning new ways to communicate thoughts that are more likely to be heard and not trigger their defensiveness and their need to push back on us or to block us or to be the character in Peanuts. Wow, 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 wow. That was the teacher, right? Wow, 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 right? We want our kids to hear us. And so we have to work around their defenses, and they are very defensive. They're going to anticipate that we're going to come at them because they feel their own shame and their own blame. So, Kitty, it's not about sweeping it under the carpet. It's about dealing with it in a time and a place where you can handle it calmly, where you can actually effectively set a boundary and a consequence and a reward and have your child respond to those. So, but good question. All right, so let's recap what we looked at tonight here. 6 things that are 6 approaches, keys that are all used one at a time or a couple of them together that will, as we get comfortable using them and as we get to making those our first go-to response, we will see the power struggles go down. I know it from my own personal experience with my children. And I'll tell you a quick story. My one of my sons, when he got involved with vaping, I was all into telling him why it was bad and awful and wrong, and he was all into telling me how, he'd read seen on TikTok or he'd read on the web where his friends had shared with him that this science was wrong and there was this study that said it was great and there was no harm to it. And all we were doing was power struggle over, he was going to hang on to vaping at all costs, and I was going to get him to stop vaping at all costs. I had to win that battle because I was so determined that it was bad for him and I had to win right now. And he was equally determined that he was not going to give in to me. And we got nowhere except to a place where we didn't talk to each other. And I was crazy with anxiety. When I learned how to use these tools and I had people to help me figure out how to say things and to practice with me and to give me, go for it, give it a try, make sure that you respect his red lights. He and I sat on the porch, our porch one day, and instead of my coming at him like I usually did, I said, I know you're vaping, and I know you think it's an okay thing for you to do, and I'm curious as to what you see in it for you. And for the first time, he actually talked to me. And what did he do? He talked to me about why he thought vaping was okay for him. And I said, okay, I hear that you think vaping's okay for you. You know that I don't see it the same way as you do. And because I took that approach, he then came back to me and said, well, there's also a couple things that, it's kind of expensive. And he started to list the things that he wasn't so comfortable with about it. And that was a huge breakthrough because from there on out, we were able to have a conversation and I was able to be positioned to help him get to a place where he wanted to stop and where I was then helping him figure out how to do that. Transformed our relationship. And I couldn't have done it if I wasn't using these tools. Our job with power struggles is to anticipate them and disarm them before they start, right? And the biggest thing I can tell you, and the parents that I work with that are open to trying something new, have they report amazing results because they take a different approach and that drives new responses from their children. And I'm going to tell you, as you try these, be consistent. You may not get a change the first time you try it or the second, but probably the third or fourth at most. You might get a change the very first time you try something different. But sometimes it takes them a little while to recognize that, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to put up my boxing gloves. I don't have to be fighting. I'm not being attacked. I'm being asked a question. Be consistent because change takes time. So what I've learned in as my journey and why we've created the inner circle is that in addition to the reading and I took some classes and I read some books and I grabbed a clinician when I could and asked them how to solve a particular problem that was in front of me, I needed to be able to be comfortable in new skills. I needed the opportunity to ask questions as I tried to tailor how I said things and how I did things for myself and my family. I found the support group of other parents who were also trying to use the same approaches and the same skills, and we helped each other. It's an amazing community of people who are all trying to take the same approach and help their child. They're all trying to tailor it for their unique situation, and they're helping each other problem solve. And then having access to, I was lucky enough to find a couple of coaches who were there for me. I could connect to them when I need to. I could drop in and see them. They were part of the community that I was in. That's when I was really able to transform my work with my child. And I have taken that into the coaching I do. And that's what I help parents do, is really transform what they're doing. And my commitment is that you will find calm and confidence. Thank you, everybody. I hope that I hear from you as to how it went as you try these skills, because I know you're I believe in every one of you, and I know you're going to see changes. So thank you. That's all from me.